President and CEO of the Public Broadcasting Service, and my friend, if we can stand up here, Paul Gerger. That actually happens to us a few times. We're mistaken from the back. Anyway, which I take as a great compliment. Thank you, and thank you both Pats. Many of you are already familiar with the extraordinary job that Pat Harrison has done for us at CPB, and she really is an extraordinary partner. On those tough days, I actually, as many of you may know, Pat loves Winston Churchill, and if you go into her office, it's sort of a shrine to Winston Churchill. So I haven't told you yet, my husband for Christmas gave me a tiny little plaque that I'm sitting on my desk that says, quoting from Winston Churchill, "When you're going through hell, keep going." And somehow that also made me think of you, I don't know. But I also, and now you just have had a sense of it, just want to tell all of you how very, very lucky we are to have Pat Butler joining the forces here at APTS. I've known Pat for many years, actually before I came to Washington, but in the period since I've been in Washington, Pat really was a great friend to me and gave me quiet counsel on a number of issues, particularly as we were wrestling through some interesting times with the FCC. He is a true force. He is well-connected. He is the consummate professional. He really understands Washington, but I think it's really important for the people in this room to understand, and we heard a little bit in his speech, he passionately believes in education. And every speech that I've heard him make, every presentation that I've heard him give, every one-on-one interview that he's been a part of, the first thing that he talks about is public television's role in education. And you need to know that because I can't think of anyone that's going to be a more important champion for the work that we do in this critical area than Pat. Now, as both Pats have outlined, we're going to need to marshal all of our forces to make sure that we fight back proposals to eliminate federal funding. And we do face some very serious challenges, but I want to remind all of us that in these tough economic times, particularly in these tough economic times, the work that we do to provide free programming to every American is more important than ever. So I want to just take a few minutes this morning in sort of prepared comments to talk to you about some of our work. And then I do want to leave room for questions because I know that in talking to some of you last night, you have some specific questions about some of the work underway, and I want to make sure that we have a chance to get through that. So I thought this morning I would talk a little bit about some of the new content that we're offering up. I'll make a few comments about the process that we're underway with dues review. I know there's still been a lot of questions and confusion about that. And then I want to talk to you about just a couple of our other initiatives, including the work that I've been engaged with funding the vision. So that's what I'm hoping to cover today. But I think that the bottom line is that regardless of what is going on in the country right now with our economy, American people really do count on us to provide quality program that opens their minds to greater possibilities. And that's what we all have to remain focused on. I think that with everything else that we're juggling, tough budgets and making our case, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that each and every day, the work that we're engaged in, both for the home as well as in the school and in our communities, is so profoundly important. And so the best work that we can do is to make sure that that content is of the highest quality. Now, I just came back from press tour. As you can tell, my voice doesn't sound quite the same. I went to press tour with laryngitis, which was great for the sympathy factor, I have to add. I actually started my remarks on the first day by saying it was not a shameless ploy. I really actually could not speak. But I was really proud of the programs that we put in front of the critics. And in fact, a number of critics pulled me aside during the course of the 2 days that PBS had our work in front of them to say that it was the best lineup that they've seen from PBS in 10 years. And I think that what we're trying to do is, in the work that we do both for children as well as in prime time, is to provide for you and then through you to the communities the kinds of programs that really do inspire and that give Americans tools to not only improve their lives, but to make better sense of the world around them. And I think that, as Pat said, we're not just the most American of media organizations, we're the most American of institutions. I mean, that's the value that this country was built on. The idea that any American has the opportunity to succeed if, in fact, given just the chance. And we give Americans the chance. We give Americans the kind of content that really does have impact. And we give Americans the kind of content that enables them to not only look beyond their world, but also entertains them as well. And that's something that we also need to pay attention to. We started with the press with Masterpiece Theater, and as you know, this season, Upstairs, Downstairs returns to public television. Critics are very excited about that. We have a new series with a new mystery series, A Worthy of Zen. And so part of what we're seeing with these two series, as well as the season opening of Downton Abbey, which I hope for those of you that actually look at overnight Nielsen's, you realize has been an extraordinary ratings success, but also critical success. The Masterpiece, as a jewel of the public broadcasting service, has over the course of the last couple of years really reinvented itself, and they've been quite successful in bringing in larger audiences. We also shared with the critics the American Masters that premiered last night with Jeff Bridges, which was great, wasn't it? The Baltimore Sun calls the series the greatest cultural storytelling franchise in American life. I think that's pretty good, even with the dude. And on the performing arts side, we shared with critics the new project we have with Placido Domingo, the charming Harry Connick Jr. and great performances, as well as the full range of arts programming that we share with the country. I particularly call your attention to Independent Lenses series in April in visual arts, which has a series of 4 really powerful documentaries, one of which is on the very short list for Oscar consideration, Wasteland. This work is important and impactful, and the kind of work that you only find on public broadcasting. POV is bringing forward another great season, and they had a brand new filmmaker who has followed, comes from a rural part of Minnesota, that follows some kids from her town into combat, and the consequence in rural America for those kids that the only way out is for them to enlist in the military. Again, really powerful and important projects. And then, of course, as Pat referenced, the events in Arizona this weekend really underscore the importance of the work that we do in every night with the NewsHour, and then in series like Frontline. NewsHour obviously has been covering the stories. Frontline is working now on a piece, actually thanks to the money that CPB has given them for expanding the series this year, and they are hoping to get something on the air within the next week or two, I think, or 3, on Arizona. And from our perspective, not from some of the sensationalist, I want to use a nice word, sensationalist reporting, I'll use that word loosely, that we're seeing on sort of the wall-to-wall cable breathless reporting that's coming out of cable franchises. I'm going to share with you a video, and I'm going to leave it behind. So I know there's an HD projector in one of the rooms, and I encourage you, if you have the chance to look at it today, that the NewsHour shared. You know, NewsHour's gone through a metamorphosis this past year, not just in changing their name, but really changing the series, and in some ways, in more profound ways than is perhaps evident. Bringing together the online NewsHour with the broadcast itself. Online NewsHour's audience has gone up by 200%. broadcast audience has also increased this year. They've worked in looking at expanding the amount of field pieces. They've looked at really integrating the reporting so that they're not just talking and focused on a single night's broadcast, but it's really an ongoing commitment to coverage, which I think in this age is also profoundly important. Now, television critics aren't particularly interested in children's media. They actually tend to focus mostly on prime time. But every time I'm in front of them, I always take the opportunity to talk about the work that we're doing for children, because I think it's important for them to know and to be reminded that we are, in fact, the only media source that is created to teach and inspire kids, not to turn them into consumers. And I think that the work that we've done for children on PBS is frankly, and I'm preaching to the choir, I know here, is the most important work that we're doing. There is not a computer in every home. There is a television set in every home. And if you look at the people and the children that we are reaching through over-the-air broadcast and the impact that we're having in those young lives, particularly for children who will never see the inside of a pre-K classroom, you understand why this work is so profoundly important. And I'm really gratified. And so for those of you, and again, since many of you work in education, I know you pay attention to the fact that over the course of the last, actually initially it started 6 years ago, it started before I came to PBS, we have slowly and consistently been upgrading the quality of the children's content. We always had wonderful programs on PBS. But moving our focus into programs that are curriculum-based, focusing on both literacy and now with the benefit of this new Department of Education grant, expanding our work in STEM, I think that we have a great opportunity to reach more kids with content that isn't just safe and teaches good values, but also gives kids a fair start at entering school ready to learn. And I'm really excited as we look at the results of our work this fall. And if you just look at it from a ratings perspective, we now have 4 of the top 10 children's programs for kids 2 to 5. Curious George in November, the Follow That Monkey special garnered a 7.3 rating for kids 2 to 5. But I think what is important for us in public media is, as proud as I am that we're reaching lots of kids, and that's the reason I'm interested in the ratings, not to brag, but to realize that we're actually touching so many lives, is that we have more information now, which I'm sure you've been sharing over the last couple days, that demonstrates the power of media to educate. The research shows that children who watch shows like Sesame Street, Between the Lines, Super Why, and Word World show marked improvement in key literacy skills. And they're not just modest gains. The University of Pennsylvania study showed that children increased literacy skills by 46% by watching as few as 2 episodes of Super Why. And so I think that this is the work that we need to remain focused on, and I know that when we go to the Hill to the case, these are some of the statistics that we'll be sharing with legislators. And of course, the other keynote event that we will be pointing to as well is that for the 13th consecutive year, we have earned more Daytime Emmy Awards for our children's programming than any broadcast or cable network. These are all significant accomplishments, and these are significant accomplishments that we share, because this is all work that we create together. This isn't work that's just created by PBS. This is work that we share the investment in developing out, and you help us so much in extending that work into communities and giving us the feedback to shape the schedule that we put together. Now, I know that it sounds optimistic. My remarks have sounded so optimistic. So far, it is clear we're facing steep challenges. But I'm confident as we look at how to build an efficient organization, both at the national level as well as I know the work that you all have underway within your communities, we are going to come out of the other side of this difficult period much stronger.